Good evening and welcome to Estuary TV News. I'm Hugh Riches. Tonight I'll be reviewing the week's regional press with commentator, analyst, observer and pundit, Estuary TV journalist Richard Morris. But first, the news headlines with James Dunn.
Hello, in the headlines today, a visit from the government's community secretary and lighting a candle in memory of those lost on the 100th anniversary of the outbreak of World War I. Government Minister Eric Pickles says multi-million-pound investments into the Humber industries show a much-needed rebalancing of the local economy. Mr Pickles opened E.ON's operations and maintenance facility for the Humber Gateway offshore wind farm on Grimsby Docks and visited the proposed site for Able UK's marine energy park. But the Secretary of State for Communities and Local Government has famously introduced swathing cuts to local council budgets in the region. We spoke to him in Grimsby about local investment.
This is about the rebalancing of the British economy. What we're seeing here is private jobs going in, about commercial jobs going in, which are more sustainable and are going to create a better and stronger employment market than just relying on the public sector.
A Hull councillor says that they'll maintain the wholeness of the fruit market after a £1.5 million investment was announced last week. Hull Fruit Market won an £800,000 grant from the Coastal Communities Big Lottery Fund, which will be matched by Hull City Council. It will help them refurbish over 1,600 square metres of empty warehouse on Humber Street next to the city's marina. The area was almost derelict when the last property owner pulled out, but it's since enjoyed a cultural renaissance thanks to Hull's artistic community. Councillor Stephen Bayes says it's a big boost for the area, which is already growing into a key cultural quarter of the city.
When the last property developer pulled out of this area about 6 years ago, it was put over to what they call meanwhile uses, and that's grown and developed well. It is unique, and we've tried very hard to try and make sure that that special uniqueness, that wholeness remains, and it doesn't become any place, any town with the usual international brands and chains. So we're trying to let them go elsewhere and encourage private independents to come here. 3 men called nasty and manipulative have been sentenced to a total of more than 25 years in prison. Police said crimes committed by Ernesta Rimkevičius, Manta Vilkaitis and Raimondas Popsis had a significant effect on the Lithuanian community of Scunthorpe. They were sentenced at Grimsby Crown Court last week for an incident involving kidnap and blackmail in Scunthorpe last July. Walking to work and the food are two of the many great things about Hull that the new City of Culture Chief Executive is looking forward to when he moves here from London in September. Martin Green, the man behind the 2012 Olympic ceremonies and torch relays, was appointed Chief Executive of City of Culture 2017 last week. He starts in September and says, just like London, selling Hull will be easy because it's already proved it's a world beater.
You've already proved that. You won the bid. It was an extraordinary bid. It had the whole city behind it. It galvanised everyone's support and it rightly won. Hull is exactly the kind of city that the City of Culture designation was created for. We don't have to create anything. It's here. We've got an opportunity over a year to put some more resources in, to bring in some friends and guests and ask people to work together to create some extraordinary moments.
Hundreds of residents turned up to a fun day in Waltham organised by the parish council and the police. The Mount Pleasant Fun Day was a chance for children to have fun but also talk to PCSOs about their presence in the community. We talked to the organisers about how important it is for people to know their local officers.
The aim is to get all the community together and show that we're all approachable. The police are obviously approachable. The parish council are around and about and doing good work for the village, and to have fun. Very, very well. But to be honest, in Waltham they react well to the police anyway, and the parish council. So.
Certainly, and as if I can reiterate, you know, it's all about bringing the community together and showing them, look, you know, we can do these things for you and put on these kind of events. Just come out and have a good time and support them.
And finally, many of us will be lighting a candle in aid of the fallen as tonight at 11 o'clock we commemorate the outbreak of World War I. But in Withensea, the candle will be a little larger as they light the Millennium Beacon, a huge flame on the promenade that can be seen miles into the Humber. The beacon lighting is preceded by a memorial service starting at 10 and was arranged by the Town Council and Withensea Wartime Experience.
Well, lighting the beacon, it's taken it's taking it to the next level, sort of. Instead of just putting a candle in your windowsill, we're going to be putting a candle, if you like, on the promenade. We're taking all of Withensea and saying Withensea remembers as opposed to I remember.
That's all from me. Bye for now.
I'm joined by my esteemed colleague Richard Morris to have a look at this week's papers. Richard, what have you found?
I found all kinds of things. First of all, esteemed colleague.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much. That's a very nice way to introduce
My
me.
esteem is boundless.
Thank you so much. So first of all, we found careless parking. It has put lives at risk in flats in Grimsby. This is
yes.
people in Tennyson House. Now, an elderly gentleman fell asleep and he was cooking some food at the time. And as smoke started to pour out of the building, obviously people, phoned the fire brigade, which is obviously completely the correct thing to do. What was wrong was people who'd parked outside the building on that day hadn't necessarily parked very safely, and so they had difficulties getting the fire engine to the flats.
That seems to be an extremely dangerous activity. If
Yes.
you're blocking public highways and access for the emergency services, then that's a lethal error.
Indeed, and what actually makes the story even more interesting is that apparently the vast majority of people who are parking at these flats during the day aren't actually people that live in the flats. There are 9 parking spaces apparently for Tennyson House, and only a few of these are actually used by the residents. The rest of them, and the ones that go along the street, tend to be people who live and work nearby, because they say every day at 8:30 in the morning or so these parking spaces get filled up.
One of the witnesses to this, I noticed in the story, is quoted as saying how skillful the drivers of the fire engines were.
Oh yes, yeah.
Manoeuvring these enormous, great big machines. I think they're known as appliances, aren't they?
Yes.
Through with gaps of a few millimetres either side.
Absolutely.
That's
absolutely.
a skillful piece of navigation.
I have to say, yeah, when I first read the headline, I was thinking to myself, parking putting lives at risk. I was thinking, what on earth is that about? I didn't know if people had been parking at diagonal angles in bays and had been forcing cars to go round them, but apparently not. It's a genuine, real hazard.
It strikes me that the careless parking is only the second most dangerous aspect of this story. The first most dangerous aspect being falling asleep while you're cooking.
Indeed, indeed. Well,
How can that possibly be done?
Well,
That must be an extremely boring food.
I don't know. I don't know. I can fall asleep to anything.
Oh, right.
I can fall asleep on any long journey or anything like that.
We'll try to be alert, not while you're driving, I hope.
No.
A second story. This is
Yes.
from the Grimsby Telegraph.
Yes.
A second story from the same paper.
Yes, this is Harvey the Little Miracle. This is a lovely story. He's made fantastic progress. They thought at first that he had some kind of, horrible brain tumour or something like that. But actually, it turns out it was seizures being caused by a lesion in his brain.
This is a 4-year-old child.
Yes, and he had to travel 70 miles to get back and forth to Sheffield Children's Hospital. Obviously, they were prepared with the worst news that it could have been a brain tumour, but it turns out that it wasn't in the end. And apparently he's making just a fantastic recovery. All of the hospital staff have said how well he's done.
So lesions on the brain, this is an extremely rare condition. It's
Yes.
something to do with the arteries and the veins getting confused somewhere
Yes.
on the brain. And the consequences were seizures and also just very vague periods,
he
fugues.
he had what they described, I believe, as vacant periods, which
Right.
is just kind of, I presume, it's almost kind of like a mini stroke, really. It must be that kind of experience, because they were saying that, he just wasn't reacting to things during these periods of time.
A condition like this, the rarity of it means that the facilities for treating it will be equally rare.
Yes, hence Sheffield Children's Hospital.
But it doesn't seem that far away for something so rare to go to Sheffield. Is what, 70 miles away? That's a couple of hours drive.
Yeah, and they were
wonderful.
saying as well, the hospital staff was in this article. The parents said the hospital staff was so wonderful. They managed to get them set up with other beds and stuff, so they wouldn't have to go back and forth 70 miles each day. Which obviously is very, very important for the parents, and just an all-round well done job.
And anyway, well, excellent, and the child is recovering excellently.
Indeed,
good for him.
Yeah.
Geothermal energy.
Yes.
Under the crust of the earth, under Grimsby.
Underneath Old Clee,
right.
Apparently, in Church Lane and Linden Homes Club to the south.
Right.
This is essentially saying that, we all know about these, boreholes and geysers and everything else that are in Yellowstone, etc.
Yes.
Apparently we can now harness this energy, and over the past 2 decades, I read, it's gone down, the cost of producing geothermal energy has gone down by about 25% as a result of research and everything else. So this could be a very interesting move into sort of affordable renewable energy.
Now, just emphasise, this is different from fracking. That's
Yes,
nothing to do with
yes,
that at all.
yes.
This is tapping the heat generated by the
Yes.
molten core of the very planet.
Yes, yes.
The bowels of the earth. And we've got it right here on the south bank of the Humber.
Apparently so. Who knew? It's very different. It's very different to fracking. I mean, the second I read this story, I thought to myself, I'd better research to see if this is, if this hasn't caused any controversy. It hasn't. I mean, it's essentially just the natural sort of, heated springs in the ground, and they're just going to try and see if they can channel that into these 25 homes that they want to build, 5 of which will be affordable.
They've been doing this in Iceland for decades, though, haven't they?
Yes.
And admittedly, it's much more volcanic, and the hot molten rock is closer to the surface there. But it's a technology that's that is literally globally available as long as you can dig a hole deep enough, I suppose.
Indeed.
It has implications in terms of domestically produced energy as well. In Europe, especially, where people are so dependent on Russian and Middle Eastern energy sources, both of those places being tumultuous at the moment, that there's a sort of energy independence possibility if we could just get it all from the very ground itself.
And of course, geothermal energy, I mean, I'm not entirely sure even how well researched it is. I mean, I don't know if we know how much we have of it, but I'd imagine that, if you can find some, in Old Clee, it might be all over the country. Who knows?
Well, it's certainly all under the country, isn't it? Somewhere.
Indeed, indeed.
North of the river, north of the Estuary, the Hull Daily Mail.
Hull Daily Mail.
Story about not quite sand castles, sand sculptures.
Sounds good. I'm going to have to hold up 2 pages of this. It's the most fantastic double-page spread. This is a man called Paul Hoggard, and he's from Beverley originally, and he has gone all over the world and produced these magnificent sand sculptures, which we can see in the various pictures. And
wonderful warrior's head there. What's that? A bunch of elephants, right.
Gorillas, etc. And essentially, what he wants to do is he wants to produce these as part of the whole City of Culture 2017 celebrations.
Yes.
And he wants to have this sort of sand festival.
A sand festival.
essentially a sand festival.
How does he make them? Is it a matter of moulding the sand?
Well,
or does he build it by hand? Does he glue it together? Does he spray on some sort of epoxy or something?
His background is in steel and construction. And then
absolutely no help at all.
Well, indeed. But then, he said he was melting stainless steel, and he wanted to try sculpting in a different way, essentially. Well, so he started working with sand, and look at where he's got to.
He's certainly found it, and it's
Indeed.
absolutely fantastic.
And he's been commissioned by Queen Elizabeth II. He did some pigs and piglets, which he presented to the Queen.
Right. Well, I'm sure she appreciated it. And also in the Hull Daily Mail, there's a rather chauvinistic Yorkshire story.
Yes. Now, I'm actually quite in favour of this, because I can't get anywhere without a sat-nav. So I think the ability to see the sign of where I'm travelling to...
This is a sign on the Humber Bridge saying, "Welcome to Yorkshire, you are entering Yorkshire."
I need that. I don't know about
when
you.
you cross the Humber Bridge, you are not sure where the other end is going to leave you.
No. My sense of direction is that bad.
Is this? I mean, it's a white rose. Is this a piece of Yorkshire chauvinism? Is this a piece of?
I think it's just
autonomous county of Yorkshire.
Well, yeah. I mean, what they're saying is that essentially you can't put places that are outside of council authorities. So, currently the signs that exist are East Riding because they're the council ones.
Okay.
What he wants is an actual county one.
All right, Richard. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Excellent selection of stories. That's all we have time for this time, I'm afraid. Please, if you have any stories for us, do get in touch at estuary.tv or through Twitter or Facebook, or give us a phone call on 01472 315561. Until next time, goodbye.